Hi, I'm Heather Walther from Palm Health, and this is your Stretching Best Practices webinar. A couple things before we get started. Want to make sure that you're in a space where you can move around easily, maybe on a mat or on the carpet. Make sure you've got comfortable clothes on so you can move easily, and then a couple possible props. We are going to be seated for a few minutes to chat and then to do a few of our first stretches in a seated position. So if you'd rather be in a chair, that's perfect. Grab a chair. You can sit there for a little bit. Or if you are on the ground and would like some support, grab a yoga block or a folded up towel or blanket. You can place it underneath the hips to put the pelvis and the spine in a really nice, tall, neutral position. If you had access to print out the handout, perfect. If it's near you and you want a pencil to take notes, amazing. If you don't have it, you don't need it. We're going to give plenty of instruction and you'll know exactly what to do as we go along with the stretches. So anytime I'm instructing, I always like for people to know the what and the why of what we're doing. So we're not just jumping in and doing it and not really knowing the reason that we do it for our bodies. So stretching, as most people know, they can imagine or can practice a stretch and know exactly what it is. But really, we're taking ourselves through range of motion in the body. And it can look different ways. So one way to stretch is dynamic stretching, which would be a continuous flow of movement through the ranges of motion to warm up the body, provide circulation. This is generally what you would do before a workout. Another way to stretch would be static stretching, which is more the passive stretching. That's kind of what people think of when they think of stretching, where you're really not putting a lot of muscle effort into it. It's a passive stretch where you're just relaxing into a pose. So that's what we're going to really practice today, is go through, try to kind of go head to toe and work the entire body in static stretching. My biggest suggestion is when you're doing the static stretching, it should always come after a workout or training or on a recovery day. The dynamic stretching, where you're continuously moving through movement, maybe mimicking what you're about to do. So for instance, if you're about to do a weight workout, you might do some lunges without any weight, and then you'll add the weight when you do your strength workout. Or if you're going to run, you might do some light walking or some knee hugs or some, things that kind of where you're continuously moving. So I want to make sure that that's distinct. I think a lot of people get discouraged when it comes to yoga or stretching and think, well, I'm really inflexible. I don't even want to think about it. I hope that I could change some people's minds to know that stretching doesn't have to be with a goal of being a yogi or looking like a gymnast. The real reason to do it is to build resilience in the body. We have a lot of things that we like to do actively, and stretching will help us build that resilience in our body so that we can continue doing the things that we love. So the goal is not to have the best range of motion or even normal range of motion per se, but it's just to build resilience in each individual body. So that kind of goes into the why do we do it. So there's so many reasons, but one of them would be to decrease any soreness or pain that we might be having in muscles or joints, and that could be because of a workout or because of activities of daily living that we do on a repetitive basis. It helps to improve circulation and hydration of the tissues that we're working, and we always want that. It's just like maintenance of anything else that we do. It can help improve mobility, so kind of something that we just talked about, where we're not necessarily trying to look like a gymnast or the best yogi in the world, but we can, with time, especially with the static stretching, start to improve some mobility. It can help us prevent injury. So again, by building the resilience in our bodies and maybe even just maintaining the range of motion that we have or gaining a little bit, it can help us to prevent injury, especially if we go and do something we're not used to doing and we put our bodies in a situation that they're not used to. It helps us bounce back and recover and maybe have the range of motion to perform whatever we're doing. One of the things I really love about stretching is it makes us slow down. We are in such a fast-paced world. So by slowing down, we often can help ourselves restore the nervous system. So we can be putting ourselves in positions that help us decrease stress, help the nervous system slow down, and just take a breather for a second. Tap back into breath. I also love the way that it will make people notice and be more mindful about their bodies. So sometimes when you slow down and put yourself in these certain positions, you start to notice things. So maybe you notice that there's an area that's sore or tight, and then you might respect that, and guard that or protect it the next time that you're performing some sort of exercise or doing some activity outside. So one of the biggest things too is recovery. So whether you're doing it to recover from one workout to the next, or you've got a day where you know you're not going to exercise and you just want to recover, it's a perfect way for us to really nourish our muscles so that we can continue doing what we're doing. So like I said before, we're not going to do dynamic stretching. That's typically something you would do before a workout where you're continuously moving through range of motion. Today we're going to stick with static stretching, and I'm going to try to get us head to toe. You've got your handout here that shows the different pictures. So with static stretching, like I said, we're not putting a lot of muscular effort into it. Often we're just relaxing into a pose, trying to improve mobility, improve the circulation and hydration of the tissues that we're working with. So we're going to start from the top and kind of work our way down. We're going to start with a neck stretch. So again, you could be seated in a chair or seated on the floor. So we want to have this nice, really tall spine. So that's one of the main things that we'll talk about with each stretch, is that we want to have the proper setup. We want to make sure that we're not starting in poor alignment. So when we do the neck stretch, we want to make sure we're sitting. You could be standing if that would be more comfortable as well, where your ears are over your shoulders and your shoulders are over your hips. So we are just going to be super simple and take the right ear over towards the right shoulder. So we want to make sure, so my face is facing you and yours is facing me. So we're still staying forward. We haven't rotated. We just did this side bend. Now this could be plenty. I'm going to take this one a couple steps further than the picture shows, but for this one, if you don't want to move at all, this could be enough. Stay here. If it works, you might take the right hand and place it on the left side of the head, just gently giving it a little bit of pressure. So you are not yanking it at all. You are breathing nice and deep and slow. That just might have added a little bit of range. If you did add that, we're going to release it. Keep the side bend and then add a little bit of rotation. So we're going to rotate and look down towards that right hand that's on my right knee, or if you're seated and your feet are on the floor, again, wherever that right hand is, you're looking down that way. So I've added a rotation to my side bend. That changed where my stretch kicked in. We're going to come back to the side bend and then back upright. Let's do the other side so we feel even by the time we're done. So you're going to go left ear to left shoulder. Perfect place to stay if you don't want to add anything, the resistance or the rotation. This is a great place to stay. Check back in with posture. Make sure you're sitting up nice and tall. Again, you could add that left hand onto the head. I am barely putting the weight of my hand on my head, and I already feel the difference in that stretch. Again, if this is enough, stay, or option to release the hand and add a little rotation to that side bend. So now I'm looking down towards my left knee. Come back into that side bend and then back upright. So one thing I want to mention about timing of stretching, I think a lot of people think I don't have time. I just don't have enough time to fit this into my schedule. It doesn't take a lot. And really studies have shown that even if you were doing 5 minutes a week, and that would be 1 minute for 5 different days, you are going to see gains. And that's with the static stretching. So let's say you know your hamstrings are tight and your glutes are tight, and you want to put some effort in 5 minutes in your whole entire week. So this doesn't need to be a long, lengthy process. All right, so let's move on. We're going on to the upper back and shoulder stretch. So again, I want to start with really nice alignment. I'm going to tee out my arms here and then take my left arm over across my body and take my right hand onto my forearm. I'm going to look over the shoulder here. So you could always use the palm if that works. You could always use the forearm as well. I'm staying upright with my posture, and now you can feel the stretch coming in to that upper back area. So nice big breath, keeping the crown of the head reaching up towards the sky, breathing into it. So holding this anywhere from 30 to 60 seconds. Finding the breath. Let's take the other side. So open it up, get that nice T stretch. Let's take the other arm across. So I'm going right arm across. I'm going to take my palm to that forearm and then look over my right shoulder. So feeling the stretch through that upper back. So if you've done upper back work, like you were doing rows or flies, this would be a perfect thing to get a little stretch to those muscles that have worked. Big breath in. Come back in center, a little shake out of the arms. Let's keep going with the arms. Finish those off in the next 2 stretches. So take a big inhale, sweep the arms up high. We're gonna get into the tricep. I'm gonna bend my left elbow and take my right hand to that elbow. I'm gonna hug it in towards my ear and then add a little pressure as I reach my left fingertips towards my mid-back. So I'm trying not to, but I'm doing it. Arch my back too much. I wanna come back to neutral and make it all about the tricep. Big breath in, let's take the other side. So big reach up, bend the right elbow, grab it with the left hand. Now, one thing you could add on is a little side bend up and over. So now we're gonna get into the shoulder, the side body, but also that tricep. So that's just a little added bonus if you want it. Keep breathing. Come back up right when you're ready. And then shake that out. All right, so let's get into the chest. So you'll see in the picture on the handout, if you've got it, someone's standing. So you can do the standing or seated. This is so perfect to do if you've been sitting for a really long time at your desk and you've been rounded forward, even though you're trying not to. You've been working at your computer or working on your phone or whatever your smart device is, or paperwork. Getting a quick chest stretch really feels good. So we're gonna clasp the hands back behind our back. We're gonna open up through the chest, look up as you lengthen out through the arms. So giving you a little bit of an angle here. And just breathe. So we get this nice stretch through the chest, through the front of the shoulder, even through those biceps, and just kind of helps remind us of the posture that we need to be holding. So that nice open chest, wide collarbones, open heart. Take a deep breath in. And then release it out. So big shake out. All right, let's move on. We're gonna get into lower body. So if you are in a chair or standing up, come down to your space. We are gonna start into the low back and the gluteals. So we're gonna find child's pose. So again, if you've got a rolled up towel or cushion or blanket and you need a little bit of support on the knees, make sure you've got something underneath them. If you have knee issues, you can always skip this one. But if it works, come to the shins. We're gonna take the knees a little wider than the hips apart and then walk forward with the hands. So this one, you're gonna feel through the gluteals, probably through that low back a little bit. It might be into the inner thighs. For some, they start to feel it in through the top of the feet because they're not used to getting the feet in that position. If you've got a blanket or blocks, you could always prop the upper body up if you don't want to come all the way down into that fold. And then you're going to move the legs in or out to a position that feels good to the knees and the low back. So we want to protect everything. We never want to get into any pain when we're going into a stretch. We might feel that little bit of tension and that length, but we definitely don't want to push into any pain. I like child's pose as a reset as well because it kind of shuts down one of our senses, our sight, and makes us really come inward just a bit. It's a great chance to focus in on breath, get some length through the backside body. So again, adding on, you could make a note if you wanted to. One good thing to add on to this one is to take a little walk over to the right side. Get into that left side body. So I'm anchoring down through my left hip and crawling through my left fingertips. This helps me get in and around that shoulder blade, the shoulder area, all the way into the side body and into that hip. Let's take it to the other side. Come back in center. Anchor through that right hip, crawl with the right fingertips. And then come back in center, take a breath. Begin to roll it up one vertebrae at a time. Let's find tall kneeling. So moving on, we're gonna come into hip flexors and quadriceps. So again, if you need some support underneath the knee, go for that on the left knee. Let's start with the right. We're gonna take a step forward with the right foot. Now for some, getting into this kind of 90-90 position, these angles, is plenty, and that might be enough. What we're really targeting is actually the left side. So I'm looking at my left hip flexors here, and coming up in this upright position, getting me in this nice neutral position. For some, this is a lot for the hip flexors. If it works, hands could come to both hands could come to the thigh, and then you add a little bit of a lunge into that pose, allowing yourself to feel more length through the left hip flexors. Lift the chin, open the chest, add a little engagement through the abdominals, and we feel that really nice stretch. So taking a big breath in, big breath out. So perfect place to stay if this is enough. And then once we go into this next part of it, you might not want to change what you're doing, but option to bring the left hand down right quick and swing the right hand back. We're gonna bend that left knee and see if we might connect with the foot. So in the picture, she's upright, and that would be just fine to be that way. I kind of like being down here like this, but if you wanted to do what she was doing, you'd come up top, bend the knee, grab the foot, and hold there. So for some, they'll get a little hamstring Charlie horse when they bend the knee. Be patient with it. Also, another way to get access to this one is to push the hips back first, bend the knee, grab the foot, and then allow the hips to come into that deeper lunge. So adding a little pressure, foot into hand, hand into foot, breathe, and then release it out. Let's come to the other side. So we're gonna step forward with the left foot this time, work on the right hip flexors. Find that really nice upright lunge, and then if it works, you're lunging a little bit more into the position. Hands could come onto the thigh. If you played with that quad stretch on the other side, you know it's not happening on either side. This is a great place to stay and breathe. You've got a little bit of awareness through the abdominals. Lift through the chest, open through the heart space. If you want to give that quad stretch a try, we're bringing the hand down. You might swing that arm around, bend the knee. Remember, you might get better access if you push the hips back first. You could add a little push-pull, hand into foot, foot into hand. And then release it, come back to that tall kneeling position. Come all the way back both knees, and then come down onto both hips. So let's swing the legs around. We're gonna get a little bit more into the gluteals, into the back a little bit. So come all the way to your back. So this one mimics child's pose a little bit. So if you're trying to get into that low back, the glutes, but you don't like child's pose because of the knee, this is a great alternative. So just bringing the knees into the chest, hugging them in. Now, if bringing them in really lifts the hips up and off the floor, maybe you allow those thighs to be a little bit further away, allow that stretch to kick in, but if it works, the knees could fall in towards the chest. Relax through the head, neck, and shoulders. Just give that little snuggle in and breathe. You could always give yourself a little low back massage, finding a little rock side to side, or stay centered. Breathe in. And then when you're ready, we're gonna come into a glute stretch, getting into the hips and the glutes. Step into the feet and cross the right ankle over the left thigh. So this gives us our figure 4. So it's probably a stretch that you've seen before. This is perfect. A lot of people will force the shape to come up towards you. If this is plenty, especially on the knee joint, stay right here. You could always use the right hand to put a little bit of pressure into that right inner thigh, get into the stretch a little bit deeper. If it works for you, you could lift the shape up and take hold of the back of the left hamstring. Now, if once you did that, you couldn't do it without lifting the upper body or without really lifting the lower body, the hips came off the floor, that's your cue. Keep that left foot on the floor, keep that shape there. If you did lift it up and the head, neck, and shoulders are relaxed, option to add a little flexion through that right ankle. Now, you could do that if the foot was on the floor too. Try to spread the toes, feel the difference in that stretch. And then another option would be to rock over towards your left, just an inch or two. Feel the stretch change and really open up the back of the hip. So we often hold a ton of tension in the hips. So if you had to prioritize and you know you're tight here, this is a great one to do. It can often calm you down a little bit, calm that nervous system, and release that tension. Let's make sure we get both sides. Come back in center, step into the left and then into the right, cross the left ankle over. Perfect place to stay. Again, if you know lifting that shape up is gonna really compromise your alignment, we wanna make sure we've got that good base of support to start. That left hand could hug into that inner thigh, or option to lift the shape up, bring it to you, grab the back of the thigh, maybe flex the left ankle, spread the toes, and then one more addition, a tiny rock over to the right side really opens up the back of that left hip. Make sure you relax the face, the jawline, you're not clenching your teeth. Let everything go here. Breathe. So making sure you've got those nice inhales and exhales, you're pulling air in, fueling the muscles as we give them some length and mobility. Come back in center if you did that little bit of rock. Uncross the legs and then reach them out long. So let's move on to the spine. So we're going to hug one knee in at a time. Let's go with the right knee, hug it into the chest. So for any reason spinal rotation doesn't work for you, you know it's something that you try to avoid or it doesn't feel good to you, then you can stay with this nice glute stretch here. Do the one leg. But if it works, I've got my right knee into my chest. I'm going to take my left hand to the outside of my right thigh. I'm going to tee out my right arm and bring my right leg over and across my midline. And then I'm going to look over to the right. So really we're trying to get the rotation in through this thoracic area or the mid-back around where the ribs are versus getting it in that low back. I'm not trying to twist there. That's why my hips are staying stacked and kind of in the same plane while now I'm twisting through that upper body more. So good breath here. Twists always can make us feel better. Relaxing the face, the jawline again. Take a deep breath. And then when you're ready, come back in. Let's switch legs. So left knee comes in, right leg goes long. Again, if you know twisting doesn't work for you, stay here. This is perfect. Get a really nice glute stretch. Otherwise, right hand grabs that left leg, bring it across the body. Tee out your left arm and begin to look over towards your left side. Take a deep breath, fill the lungs with air. Big exhale out. And then when you're ready, come back in center. Hug the knees in to rock up and grab your prop. So we've got these 3 stretches that we're going to do with a strap. So grabbing the strap, we'll come back to our back. So belt, strap, resistance band, anything that you've got that is long here, come back to your back. We're going to really work the back side of the leg, get into the hamstrings, inner thighs. So we're going to take the strap about midway and bring it around the ball of the right foot. So left knee could stay bent if that is better for your low back. It's a great place to stay, or if it works, that left leg's going to go long. So one thing I always say about using a strap is it's meant to be an extension of your arms, meaning we want to put priority on finding the straight leg first and then use the strap to bring the leg closer to us. So again, not looking really at my range of motion, or if anybody's doing this with you at anybody else's range of motion, this is all about you. So it's perfect if that leg's way out there and you've got it straight and you feel that hamstring getting some length. Amazing. I'd rather you be out there than bending the knee and pulling it in here just so you can get the thigh closer to your chest. So find the range that works for you. I've got it around the ball of my foot to make sure that we're getting into the calf and the hamstring. So you'll feel that when you do a little pull down. So slide down the strap if you can to let the arms almost come to a rest on the floor. That way this is all about the back of the thigh. Give yourself that sensation like you're anchoring your right hip to the floor. So almost like I put a piece of paper underneath there that will blow away if you don't anchor the hip down. And then in opposition, you are pressing the heel up towards the sky. Back of the knee presses towards the front of you. And then peek up at your foot. So for me, often I'm a little off. I'm not level with my toes. So if you notice the same thing, if the pinky toe is higher than the big toe, maybe give that little pinky toe a tug to try to get that foot flat. You'll feel the stretch change. That was obviously a place you needed it. I needed it for sure. Or if vice versa, the big toe's up higher, maybe you pull that down. Really try to get some levelness through that foot. So take a deep breath here. And then begin to bring both straps into the right hand. We're going to take the left hand to the left hip and allow that hip to stay anchored while you open up the right leg to the right side. So now we're still into the hamstring, but we're getting into that inner thigh. So again, your range could look like it's here, your foot could be on the floor, somewhere in between. Wherever you are is exactly where you're supposed to be. So taking a deep breath. Keeping the hips anchored. So we already did some spinal rotation. So we're going to keep the spine nice and neutral here. We don't want to lift the hips. Make it about the legs. Take that deep breath in. Big exhale out. And then coming back in center, we're going to go in the opposite direction. So finding a little bit of length through that IT band. So it's not a muscle like the rest of the things we're doing, that we're stretching, and it really doesn't have much stretch in it, but we could get a little bit of release in it and just work on the outside of that leg. So priority is keeping the hip down and then letting that heel just come across the body just a little bit. So it's not gonna look anything like that inner thigh stretch. It's gonna have way less range of motion. Keep the ankle flexed, the toes spread. Your energy, it's like it's going over the opposite shoulder. Try to keep the knee straight, that hip down, and breathe. So big breath in, fill the lungs. Big breath out. Come back into center. Let's switch sides so we're nice and level. So strap around the ball of the foot, reaching that heel up towards the sky. Again, right knee could be bent if that feels better for the low back, feels better just for the body in general. That's great. If it works to lengthen it out, perfect too. Anchor through that left hip, flex through the ankle, spread the toes. Try to find some length through the back of the knee. Check in with the upper body. Make sure you're not tensing too much. And just remember to breathe. So this is a great time too, especially when we're doing both sides, to kind of check in and notice that you feel tighter on one side versus the other. So you make sure you give both sides the same love. It's so typical to have tightness be a little bit more on one side than the other. I'm tighter on my left than my right. Peek back at that foot. See if you've got just a dramatic tilt with the foot and maybe you need to give a little deeper tug on one side of the strap than the other. Remembering that nice straight knee, and breathe. Start to bring both straps into the left hand. Come up and over. Find that inner thigh stretch. Anchoring through that right hip, making sure we're not getting into that spinal rotation. Everything staying nice and centered. Big breath in. And then come back in center. Switch hands. So now you've got it in the right hand. We're going to anchor down through that left hip. Even if you need to take the thumb and put it in that hip crease to make sure that hip doesn't come up, just allow that foot to come a couple inches across the body. So you notice if I let it go all the way, now all of a sudden my stretch has changed and I've got this spinal rotation going. So we really want to keep it nice and upright, just a couple inches across the midline. Nice flexion through the ankle, spread through the toes, anchor through the hip, relax through the face. Take a deep breath in. So this can be pretty dramatic for some. So breathe into it, making sure not to tense up anywhere else as you start to feel that resistance, length kicking in. Come back in center. Take the strap off, set it to the side. Take a big full body stretch from fingertips to toes, maybe even arch the back, find some length. And then hug the knees in. Rock yourself up. So we made it head to toe. If you're looking down at your piece of paper, one thing to remember is if you are short on time or you just want to work a certain part of the body, if you look at this, since we've kind of segmented it in the columns, you could just target the lower body. So say you needed to be pretty quick and you just did a leg workout or you just went for a run, maybe you just pick a few. You pick that figure 4 stretch and these 3 strap stretches. Or if you're having one of those days where it's not a workout day, but you're working a ton and you're sitting at the office and you just need a little breather, a little break, a movement break, then maybe you pick these first 4 stretches. Do the neck stretch, do the upper back, do the triceps, do the chest, and give yourself that really nice movement break. Remember that it doesn't have to be a really long period of time and you don't have to do this 7 days a week. That you can start small and just give yourself this time to calm down the nervous system, to give the muscles a little bit of love, to improve mobility possibly, but we're not looking to try to be professional yogis, but just to start to build resilience in the body. So picking the body parts that you need based on the activity that you're doing, based on what you've learned from your body, maybe doing what we did today or something that you've done before, and really giving yourself that focus. So I really, really hope it felt good to your body. I hope you feel energized here after getting some length and mobility, hydration to the tissues. And thank you so much for participating with me. Have an amazing rest of the day.